in that space we have in the back. My dad starts the garden tomorrow, or actually they started the garden today. So,
because you said your dad's a landscape architect, right?
Yeah.
We keep it in the family.
Yeah. It's always been kind of the dream to do something like that. So really stoked about kind of creating that space. I mean, like, restaurants are all about creating spaces.
Yeah, of course.
So like place where people feel safe and like want to share good times together, make memories. So so it's all about.
And he probably. He didn't really get to do much probably at Callie.
No.
or anything at all.
I mean, originally he was going to invest and then I didn't need an investment because I had an investor. So he took that money and bought a house in Mexico. So I'm like, okay, well, that's,
He's like, fine.
Yeah.
You don't want my help?
Yeah. But that was like his dream to have a house in Mexico. So now he has like this sick house.
Where in Mexico?
It's called Punta Piedra. It's like in between La Mission and it's like between Rosarito and Ensenada.
Okay.
But it's like right on the water. Like his backyard's like the ocean.
Yeah.
And it's like the dream house. There's a little like break that goes right in front of his house.
How often is he there?
Pretty much every other weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you and the wife and the kids?
I don't go very often, no, because I'm always working.
You're not invited.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a 10-bedroom house. It's like fucking insane. You can get down there. If you had that house in La Jolla, it'd be like $24 million house. Of course. It's crazy. But he bought it from this like plumber that built it himself, American plumber. Wow. And just like this was like pre-pandemic, so it was like, was able to get a good deal on it.
Amazing.
Put some work into it, and then like. It's not fancy, but it's like.
Does he rent it out when he's not there, or no? He doesn't need
but,
to.
But like my dad's like, just like a crazy generous person. He's like the oldest of 8. Wow. So he's always like takes care of like he's the one that like.
He was like the other parent.
Yeah, and I'm like the one that like I mean I learned that from my dad, like throwing parties and like entertaining people was like what my dad loved to do. So he was always like, open up the house to the family, and then now he has like an apartment next door to Callie that he bought, and then he has this one down in Mexico, and like literally like all the family and like cousins and everybody like just like uses my dad's places, and then every holiday is like at my dad's house, for the whole family. Like my dad's cooking for 50 people.
Wow,
it's like crazy. Yeah,
I think you need to do an event down there.
Dude, that'd be sick.
Would he be open to that?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like, do the back patio. The kitchen's not very big, but the back patio is literally like, I don't know, 8,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Just the patio and it's all like flagstone patio that opens up, and like right behind that is the ocean.
This is made for a party.
Yeah.
This is made for a multiple collaboration dinners.
Oh, dude, we could do it for sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So there's some of the articles that I read. There's people highlight like your photogenic, is that the right word? Photogenic? Photographic memory?
Oh, yeah.
Is it photographic?
Photographic, yeah.
Photographic, and then the moment your dad had done something that stuck with you. But what was it about, because you're talking about it a little bit, like your father being the oldest and sort of maybe the caretaker and maybe like an entertainer, like was there something about that made you learn about, not about being a chef, but more about being in service of other people, and really like kind of the hospitality gene, as I like to call it.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like, I think like looking back introspectively now, I look back, like, my parents were divorced. So like I was only with my dad like every other weekend, and we started like these chores, because there was like me and my 3 brothers, and then I had 2 sisters like on my dad's side. So we were always like every other weekend was like at my dad's house, just like, and my dad loved to cook. So like, and everyone had like a chore around the house that like around dinner time, it was like set the table, do the dishes. And eventually I became the one that like always wanted to like cook with my dad. And so like, I would be like fine with just like washing lettuce, 4 years old, doing whatever. And then, the story was like, the steak Diane, when my dad, put the cognac in the pan, and I saw the flame go up, and it was like that ignition went off in my head. Like, oh, I want to be a chef, this is what I want to do. But then also like, being in the atmosphere of like bringing family together and creating memories, like that was like the spark for like hospitality, I think. I didn't know it at the time, but that was like my initial like drive to like wanting to be a chef. And it was like during that time too that you know, it was pretty accessible, like when Emeril Lagasse was like new on TV, and it was like something that I could like, I had like this like little spark that went off in my heart, and then it was like Emeril was on TV, and then it was like this entertainment side of it. And not that like I'd ever like had, you know, aspirations to be on TV, but it was just like something that I could continuously like feed my hunger with like this idea that like, oh, this guy's on TV, I can like do this with my dad and like spend this time. And yeah, you know, and I was like one of 5 boys. So like, we were also like, you know, we also had our own little basketball team too. So like, you know, when I was with my mom,
full squad.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like a big part of, you know, growing up, was just like all about family and like trying to sit down around the table and, you know, creating these special memories around food. And my dad was just like, he was never like a professional chef or anything, but he was always like, definitely, you know, definitely was creative and like always reading things, and he had like all the cookbooks and stuff when I was growing up. So, yeah, he would like throw dinner parties for his friends and cook for them and stuff, and make risotto and all this stuff. It was like kind of cool.
Okay, all right. He seems like he throws down a little bit.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Was there an element of, and maybe this is with hindsight, the family being divided at that time, where you also really wanted to kind of enjoy those moments with, whether it was your mom and your siblings or like your dad and your siblings, because it was split at that point.
Even with my mom, like being at home, you know, it was always like both parents were like working, you know, like, and so, you know, I have a lot of memories of like coming home from school, and, you know, we were all 5 boys, or at least 4 of us that my parents had together. We were all within like 6 years of each other. So when we got to those like high school years, and we were all like playing football and playing all these sports, we all played like 4 or 5 sports at a time. So like, you know, the appreciation for my mom being able to make that happen. And then, you know, I think sitting around the table was just something that we all kind of, you know, really spent that time to like reconnect as a family. And, you know, whether it was like, you know, my mom made like amazing chicken noodle soup, you know, like, and people say like, what are the things about the cuisine, your family? You know, I didn't grow up with, you know, a grandma that was an amazing cook. You know, my grandma had.
You didn't have the nonna that was rolling fresh pasta.
No, I mean, I do have that in my family now, but she's not my actual nonna in Sicily. But, you know, my grandma was, you know, an Irish lady from Tennessee that, you know, grew up in a large family, and like, you know, the Irish food that I grew up eating was because she had 8 kids, you know, and so yeah, it was interesting to come from that kind of background and kind of see what, like, all those little moments that I had to like be inspired to push through and do what I did in my career. So what I've done so far.
I want to talk about San Diego a little bit. You spent over a decade in New York under Danielle and working with Gavin as well, 2 chefs who really helped define American fine dining. Yeah. But what ultimately called you back to San Diego?
You know, it's crazy because like my entire career, you know, when I was in San Diego, like the last couple of places I was working at in San Diego, you know, I really got the opportunity at 18, 19 years old to like meet some amazing chefs, including Gavin, but a chef that I was working for that like connected me to these incredible ingredients, where we go to the farm every day, and I would go to the farmer's market or a farm every day and like be connected to the farmer. And like at 18, you don't realize like how special that is. And so like, you know, I was able to convert like my passion for cooking into like my passion for ingredients. And so like that kind of like drove me to, you know, when I went to culinary school in Vermont, working on a farm and understanding like what's in the soil and having like a 2-month growing season. So like really being invested in these ingredients, and then, you know, going to London and then coming to New York, and always kind of being this like curious George about, and really like the drive was like creating relationships with purveyors, like, and also demanding the very best. And then finally I just got to this place where I was like, you know, I was just like starting to see like, hey, everything that I'm chasing is home, you know, like, and it was like both as a chef, as a restaurateur, but as a family man too. It was like family, ingredients, all these things. And it was like, you know, there's going to be like a better opportunity. And just randomly, like my first employer that I ever worked for, gave me a ring one day and he was like, hey, if, I heard you might be looking to leave New York and come back to San Diego. Like, I'm here for you, whatever you need. And I was like, nobody gets that opportunity.
No.
So I was like,
you take those opportunities.
Yeah, I felt like it was serendipitous, like it was
because
the right
you
time.
all had met 10, 12 years prior, right?
Oh,
or
yeah,
15 years prior.
15 years. Yeah.
Wow.
It was, I worked
It's amazing how things come back around sometimes.
Yeah. And to get a call from my partner, David Cohn, like, when I was in New York, it was like, hey, what do you think? And then like literally the next day or 2 or 3 days later, like him and his wife were sitting there at Blue too, like having dinner. He's like, hey, we're serious. And I was like, something is like happening here where, like somebody's looking out for me here,
Yeah.
So I felt really privileged to kind of get the opportunity to do it. And, like anything, it's a risk, you're like, because, leaving the broad wings of mentorship and, the protection of Danielle, whether, I was the chef at Ballood Sud, I was culinary director for Bar Ballood and Épicerie Ballood, and I had, 350 people under me at one point, but at the end of the day, it was still like under Danielle,
Yeah.
So when you move all the way across the country, it doesn't matter if you're the hometown boy or whatever, you got to kind of start all over again, because believe it or not, like nobody in San Diego really knows who Danielle is. And honestly, I kind of knew going back home that people were going to think that I was some punk ass New York chef working at 3 Michelin star restaurants, going to come back and, try to prove that that he can do this in San Diego.
Yeah.
And because I'm from San Diego, I was very much like, no, I'm going to go open a restaurant that belongs in my hometown. Like that was the idea to open Callie. It was like, I felt like this was something that people would really can relate to, and really at the same time a cuisine, but also, highlighting what is special about San Diego, which is the ingredients, the sunshine, like not to people that live there and never left San Diego don't understand that. People that come from elsewhere and come to San Diego, that they're there for a reason and they understand that.
Yeah.
So
They're like, that's why we're here.
Yeah. So having that perspective of like living in London, living in Vermont, living in New York City, like, and realizing how special San Diego is, it's like, now people are always like, oh, you're going to go back to New York. I'm like, dude, I'm like so happy to be home. Like, it's the best place.
I think a lot of people experience this, especially when you are so fortunate and blessed to start in such an incredible place.
Yeah.
But oftentimes we need to leave to then fully appreciate, but it's funny. I remember hearing you say, you're like, when I was in New York, Danielle would order some of the best produce in the world. That's working with Danielle, you get access to that.
Yeah.
And you said, and every day there would be maybe a box that might say San Diego on it as well.
Yeah.
So like that was a sign.
Yeah.
For you.
It was just a constant reminder of like, the ingredients are there, it's kind of waiting for you, and I don't know if it was like just, and for me, everybody in my life at the time when I was, a young chef in San Diego, I knew, 18, 19 years old, I knew that I wanted to be a chef, but like, it took like my brother passed away of like a heroin overdose, and like, and it was like, as much as that seems like something that's completely tragic, it was like, it was like the thing that kind of like catapulted me to like, run away from home and get that and inspire me like to make something that was so negative turn it into a positive, and that was like, and so it also was like just kind of like subconsciously, like it was a reason for me to like just put my head down and sink everything I had into my career, which, not everyone, that experiences tragedy like that can like really be like so focused on turning it into something positive. And that was like my ultimate goal was like, okay, I can easily like fall into this deep, dark hole, or I can like just like chase after my dreams, like the craziest, like, and don't let anything get in my way, like don't be held back by anything. Don't be held back by like feeling like, you're away from home and you miss home, or it's like, otherwise I could have never gone to London and worked in Europe, like, and been so far away from home. I've been in New York for so long because I was just like so crazy laser focused on like making something positive out of it. And like when I came home, I felt like it was like the right time for me to like, okay, I got all that out of me, like I can like really, I mean, when I was with Danielle, 10 years of working, 85, 90 hours a week, and when I came home to San Diego and it's like still the same, like people are like, man, you work like crazy. I'm like, this is what I've done my whole life. And I like love what I do. Like I truly love being in the dining room. I love cooking. I love like going and like getting fish from my fishermen. I'm a guy that, like, if I never buy like crabs that are picked already. Like I only buy whole crabs. I only buy whole fish. I break down all the fish. I love cleaning crabs. Like I just think it's such like a cool thing. It's kind of like this progression of this 4-year-old kid, and like now to this point, like I love the process. I love the craft. So it's like part of what it's just kind of my progression. And being a curious George, I'm always like, I want to get better. I want to get better. I want to get better. So it's kind of like. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, man.
Yeah.
That's it's obviously heavy, but
I've never talked about it ever before, but
but I mean, like we just had a guest on whose father experienced a stroke. It was pretty serious.
Yeah.
And he survived, but that's what made this founder realize he needed to get his life together.
Yeah.
And so like we talked about, there are gifts in as difficult as some of these things are, and they're absolutely tragic, most of them, there are gifts for some of us. If we can get beyond the tragedy of it and go, wow, what is this teaching me?
Yeah.
Type of a thing. And clearly, like, you obviously have a good head on your shoulders and you're really lucky, but you focused in on, let me spread my wings, let me work super hard, let me experience the world. And maybe you wouldn't have done that otherwise.
I don't think I would have, and thankfully I look back like that. I had that perspective, like the humility and the perspective to like kind of be, self-evaluate myself at the time and be like, hey, this could be an opportunity. I think anybody, going back to addiction, like, I don't want to talk about addiction all the time here, but like anybody that's experienced that in their family, they know that it's kind of like, it's years and years of just like being drugged through the mud, So, at the end of the day, as much as it was a tragedy, it was kind of like, something that as a family, it was kind of like, it's over, and it was somewhat of a relief, knowing that, like,
because everyone's suffering.
Yeah. And there was no excuse that I needed to like be home to like make sure that if something did happen that I could like take care of my parents or something, so when, it was kind of, looking back, I can kind of subconsciously say it was kind of a relief for me to say, okay, and like I've lived through this section and like something's pushing me to like be something more. Yeah. That was kind of, a good catapult for me to like
definitely
start and jump it,
Definitely.
So
you mentioned the signs earlier. You're like, the signs were kind of everywhere a little bit with San Diego, but like when you finally opened Callie, what did it feel like to bring that level of like craft, intention? And again, it wasn't French.
Yeah.
It was maybe something that people thought maybe you'd do something else to start with, but like that soul to back to a city that raised you.
It was an immense sense of pride, I think. Like, and still to this day, I talk about like my hometown, and I looked at San Diego, obviously as being my hometown, but I also looked at it as like there's so much opportunity. That while there's many great chefs that came before me in San Diego, like I just felt like there was still so much opportunity. Where you don't look at New York and say, oh, there's opportunity. There are certain opportunities.
There is. It's more complicated.
Right. It's more complicated, and for me, it was funny, like working with Danielle all the time for all that time, behind every dish, it was always like, it's more than just like creating like flavor and creating, putting different ingredients together. Danielle was always like, what is the story? Like, what's the story behind the dish? Like why should people like be connected to your food, And so I always had that like implanted in me, that, you should be expressive in your cuisine where, everything that you're doing, there should be a reason behind it, Otherwise, like, you can open a 3 Michelin star restaurant in the middle of Montana and serve the exact same food that they're serving at French Laundry or Per Se or whatever. But what makes it special? You know, and so like, I think, you know, even when Dave, you know, Barron was on the show, he talked about time and place. And like, I think that like that, when you're identifying like, you know, what is making something special is like, you can only have this in San Diego. Like, you know, I had some industry friends come in, like a day or two after you were there, dining at Callie, and we just got like the first box crabs. And like, I literally like, took a live box crab, steamed it in the oven, took it out, cracked it open, pulled all the meat out, put it in the head, and brought it out to them. Yeah. And it was like, you know, I was like, this is San Diego. Like, you can't get that anywhere else. You know, just like my fisherman just got the first permit in California, and it was like, you can't get this anywhere else. You know, like having that immense pride behind it. You know, using. Yeah, I brought the live sea urchin out to you and tell the story about Luke and Pete, Halme, and like, you know, like, dude, like everyone, Nancy Silverton comes down to San Diego and she's like, how do you get these ingredients? I'm like, and she's like the ingredient queen, you know?
Of course.
But you know, all these extra steps, all driven by like this crazy passion to like have the very best. But that takes so much more. Like a lot of chefs, you could just like pick up the phone and call and say, you know, tomorrow, this is what I want, you know, like, and you don't know where the fish is coming from, who it was caught by, where it was caught, you know, you don't know how fresh it will be, et cetera. So, you know,
or maybe you do know who's doing the work or who the purveyors are, but they're not like in your community necessarily. You know, they're not like a mile down the road or something, which is like, pretty incredible.
I mean, where your uni guy grows, you know, like the most spicy chili peppers as well. You know, and like just like being connected to those kind of people, like really creates, you know, just a really amazing sense of community where, you know, like only a couple places I've ever eaten in my life where like I felt like can only happen here. You know, like there's a place called in Cassis, there's a 3 Michelin star restaurant there called La Vie Marie, and like eating on the coast there in Cassis, you know, like, and eating Rouget, it was like, you know, and eating at the Trois Gros restaurant and the countryside of Lyon, like, you know, those are two experiences for me where I was like, I want to do something like this in San Diego, where it's like, you know, just everything's very seasonal and still like tells the story of the Mediterranean. You know, I think San Diego, that part of the Mediterranean thing was to, you know, one of 7 Mediterranean climates in the world. And San Diego more so than anywhere in Southern California, it just really has this lifestyle of like, it feels like you're in Cassis, you know, like it feels like, you know, like while it can be somewhat touristy, just like that it is there, you know, at the same time, it's like, there's a story that's still unwritten. It's like, you know, being written now, you know, like, and so I think that's kind of a really cool to be like, I wanted to be a part of that story. I wanted to help write that story. And, you know, I always say, you know, like when I moved home to San Diego, like everyone would say, like, what is the cuisine of San Diego? And people would say fish tacos, you know? And just fine. I grew up eating fish tacos and burritos.
Fish tacos are delicious.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like, I think there's more, you know,
of course.
And there's a story to be told, but it has to be written. Like, it's not just going to be, and someone has to write it.
And obviously people are saying that because proximity to Mexico. And frankly, like, this was Mexico. You know, and, you know, obviously respect to, you know, all the Mexican people who continue to work the lands and continue to call this place home, or multiple generations that never left and were like, this is our place. But there's so much. There's so much. You know, and it's cool to see you put your fingerprints, you know, on it, and you're still so young, you know, in a lot of ways.
I appreciate you saying that.
But I want to go back to what Danielle was saying about why this, or like the story. I mean, really what he was talking about is philosophy. You know, and so like when I think about, like, your food has been described in a number of different ways of, you know, bright, bold, very ingredient driven, obviously, but it's also deeply personal. You know, and it's shaped by the travels. it's Greece, it's Italy, it's Spain, it's London, it's Japan as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But like, again, stripping away, because this is what Danielle is saying, stripping away the labels, like what would you, like what's the feeling that of that what your cuisine is about?
I always say that it's identified by light, bright, and clean as like the core. Like I think that when I think about, because there's obviously the ingredient and the passion behind that, and telling a story about where it came from and how it was caught and what makes it special. But ultimately, that's not something that someone's putting in their mouth. And that's not something that's gonna make them salivate and create a memory that's gonna, create a flavor memory. So always like, first and foremost, I talk about what is like the core lineage of like what I always go back to. And it's always something that, and I think it's almost because like I grew up in San Diego eating, al pastor burritos and putting like lime juice and cilantro and onions and hot sauce on every bite. Like that was like my flavor memory as a kid was like acid, spice, fresh herbs and all these things. So like connecting to the Mediterranean was pretty simple, because that was kind of like, I grew up in East County, San Diego, in a place called Santee. It was like 110 degrees in the summertime. Like there's nothing that you want more than like an acidic like a watermelon popsicle with like some of the little Mexican candy, like little chili on top of it. Or now I think of sumac, or sumac, but so that was kind of like a lot of it comes from those memories that you have as a kid. Not necessarily like my grandma cooking for me, but just like these like, what do people want to eat in this place? Like in this temperature, in this climate, and that comes from like, going to like traveling all over the world and like being inspired by different areas that are similar to here, south of France, or like, Sicily, like some of my favorite places in the world.
Some of my favorite places.
Even going to like Emilia Romagna or Modena and like spending time there and, understanding, the history behind, pasta making and soft wheat flour in the north and hard wheat flour in the south. And I think that like, it's more than just like the like sharing that with the guests too. For me, a lot of like what I learned from Danielle is about like creating like something more than food, like something that is like a true legacy that you can build, is like something that you pass on to other people. So like, how do you tell your story? More than just like what you put on a plate, but like, are you generous? Like, are you a teacher? Are you a leader? Are you excited about sharing? Because that's something that like keeps me going every day, is like, opening a new restaurant now and like writing a new menu and telling a new story and like, sitting up there and in front of my, 70 new employees talking about this cuisine in San Diego, and nobody has any idea about anything. And, it makes me feel really proud, because I do it, with Danielle's badge on my shoulder, and that's a lot of pride there. But at the same time, I feel like I'm investing in my community, and with like wide-eyed, new professionals that we're building something together and something special. So like, that's also another big side of it for me.
I was just I was in a car in Milan with Julian, who has Odette in Singapore. It's a 3 Michelin star restaurant.
Dude, that's one of Danielle's favorite restaurants.
Yeah. So Julian and I forget something that happened. We're talking and Danielle comes up.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about Danielle and Sebastian, and he's like, man, they're just killing it.
Yeah.
Like they're just absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
And they're just so good. Like, and he's like, and Danielle's just so good at what he does. And you're talking a lot about how he's shaped you.
Yeah.
He's shaped not only your career, but your mentality.
Yeah.
As well. But if we could dig a little deeper, what's a lesson that you return to almost daily as a leader that Danielle has really instilled in you?
I think be gracious, be present, and understand that you're fortunate to have the fortunes that you have, and therefore, be giving of your time and care about your people. I think that comes naturally for some people and not naturally for other people. I was raised by parents who were very supportive and like gave a lot of themselves to support me. And you know, like the first time, you know, Danielle sat me down to, you know, tell me that I was going to be promoted to chef, you know, the first thing he talked to me about was my family. You know, like wanted to know more about my parents and like where I'm from and what my childhood was. And like, you know, even at that time, I mean, you know, since I was like one of my first cookbooks I ever got when I was like 12 years old was like cooking with Danielle Boulud. And so, you know, to have that opportunity, you know, when I was 27, like 15 years later, have that conversation with Danielle, and he's sitting there talking to me about my family. First thing we talked about, you know, it was like, you know, I think that's a great lesson to always stay humble and be present. And like, no matter how big you get, like, I mean, for like anybody that knows Danielle is, I don't know that there's a higher pinnacle, you know, as a chef, but also just as a human being.
Yeah.
So like at that level to still be that present to like, you know, I mean, it was one of his restaurants in New York, and obviously he cares about his people, but like, you know, still to this day, he's like gracious with his time with me. You know, he doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
You know, if I show up in New York and I don't call him, he's upset about it, you know? So like that's like, you know, I think that's, you know, just a reminder to like always be yourself, be true to yourself. And like, you know, obviously work really hard for everything you got, because nothing's ever going to come for free. And the people that you see around you that are getting accolades or whatever, like none of that matters. Like in the day, like you just gotta like put your head down and continue to be yourself. And like, you're not working for that accolade. You're working for a full dining room. You're working to, you know, to create a space where people feel safe and inspired to come to work every day. You know, you're working for those, when you throw that holiday party and you see all those kids that come, you know, that kids of your employees, you, that's like the oh shit moment where you're like, oh my God, I'm responsible for all of this, you know, like, you know, but you know, I think being the human being behind, you know, the magic, you know, I think is more important than anything else. You know, it's like just being more than just a chef. You know, I think that's probably like the biggest thing that I could say that I learned from Danielle is like, there's so many people that are so talented at cooking, but like what separates Danielle from all of that? It's like, there's so much more at a human level, you know, like even more than like mentorship, just like being a good person, staying true to yourself as a good person. And obviously there's like, you know, as a business owner at that level, even, you know, you have to make decisions that not everyone's going to agree with. And maybe some people might say that Danielle's not a good person, but at the end of the day, like he stays true to himself and makes decisions based on what is the right thing for him and his group and his employees. And like anybody can say whatever they want, but like nobody knows until you're in that position.
Of
right?
course.
So like,
of course.
Yeah. But that's what I would say about, you know, the biggest thing about Danielle is like the human side.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, you and I you were showing me the new restaurant and we were talking about, you know, it's always brilliant looking at a chef like Danielle and looking at the family tree of incredible chefs that have gone on. And we talk so much on this show to like impact culture, but how are you building a place, where the next Travis, you know, can emerge? Like how are you fostering that? Because you are kind of taking over in that space, whether you think it or not.
I absolutely do. I'm very present in that thought right now. And, you know, I think the part of having kids, you know, puts you in a different perspective of like understanding empathy. And I think that like, and remembering where you came from, you know, like, and you know, part of having kids brought me back many years. And when you're a young chef, you're generally impatient and trying to get people to like do what you want, but you don't know how to communicate very well. So learning communication skills and all those things and leadership skills, how to get people to be motivated to work for you. But at the end of the day, you know, when I'm looking at, you know, hiring new people, I'm looking at, you know, when I'm hiring people for the kitchen and the dining room, you know, I generally hire people that just have a great attitude. I'm like, you know, like, how am I going to make an impact? Well, I'm going to make an impact by showing you. not telling you, showing you. Like, and my biggest successes that I've had so far in my career is like, taking kids that are, 19, 20 years old that have no experience, that like want to be a chef. And I remember those days, and like, and I know that like when I met Gavin when I was 19, like that changed my life. And like, to have that mentorship ability to like, and now like I look for it, it's kind of, and you don't necessarily, can't really say that you look for it, but like, like when there's a kid in the dining room that's 17 years old and he's dining with his parents because he's been wanting to go to Callie forever, and they tell the server like, my son wants to be a chef. Like I go straight to that table and be like, here's my card. Call me whenever you want. If you're actually serious about this, like here's a golden ticket. Like because honestly, you worked for me for 3 years. Like I have a kid working at Danielle right now. He's working hot apps at Danielle. Like, he worked for me for a few years, went to culinary school. Then now he's cooking in a restaurant Danielle. Like that makes me so proud because I know that he's walking Danielle wearing my badge. And then he's gonna get Danielle's badge too. But at the end of the day, like, and hopefully it all comes back to San Diego. I'm sure this kid.
They don't replace the badges. Don't replace.
Right.
They just add up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have Gavin, I have Phil Thompson on my badge.
Yeah,
too.
of course.
But that, all those, I think that's like having the ability to, or just the want to give back and be a mentor, because I know how privileged I feel that like I had the mentors that I had. Like, I want to be that person, but also I have the realistic expectation of like ultimately, if I'm being a great mentor, I'm going to teach this person for 3 years and give them everything I have. And right when I have them where I want them, I'm going to let them go.
Yeah.
Because that's a good mentor, right?
Yeah.
Someone that's going to be like, Danielle had me for crucial 10 years of my life where, I never went anywhere else because he can continue to like dangle the carrot and pull it higher. And I was continuously challenged and learned a whole lot. When I came back from working in London, Gavin hired me, told me I could be a sous chef at Cafe Boulud, and I was like, no, I'm going to be starting Garde Manger. And I worked my way up, and a year later I was there, but at the end of the day, it was like, that's what I always wanted to be, was like kind of create these opportunities to like continuously learn. And when I was at Cafe Boulud and I learned Danielle's style, then it was like, okay, I can graduate to like open this new restaurant with them, and so that was kind of like, I look at that with that perspective of like taking these, good kids and turning them into great professionals, or even just having that. Gavin always said to me, like, one of the best things he ever said to me, I always say to all of my mentors, like, it's all about building a strong foundation. Like if I could be an integral part in like showing you how to not only like take 1,000 pieces of sand to build one brick, but also how to like hone your knife to, take 1,000 bricks and build a beautiful structure. Like that's something that, will impact you for the rest of your life. Even just the idea of just like building a really strong foundation. That's something that I continuously say and pass on to my mentees, So, I think that's a really important part of it.
I love that. I want to talk about Callie for a minute, because you've said Callie was the first restaurant that felt fully yours.
Yeah.
What did that experience teach you? Creativity, resilience, even vulnerability that prepares you to open Fleurette?
There's a lot of lessons learned. Like resilience is one of the key factors of like being a restaurant owner. Like understanding that tomorrow will come no matter how bad it feels today. And the ability to be vulnerable and lean on people that you trust, I think it's really important. So that first part of like just knowing that like you can get through it, because like you go like working for Danielle all this time, and even I had like what made me a great chef was for working for Danielle is that I took extreme ownership of the opportunity. So I felt like I was running my own restaurant, but I wasn't running my own restaurant. So like when you're running your own restaurant, anybody that's an entrepreneur can tell you this. Like there's many moments where you feel like you're on your own island. and you feel like you have nobody to turn to.
Super isolating.
And you have no one to turn to, and you feel like you're the only one that's going through it.
It's lonely.
Lonely,
Man.
yeah. And I think that, like, getting through my first big hump of that, gave me a lot of confidence that, like, I can do it. So being able to lead on people, like, I think, building a strong leadership team around you and understanding that, like, it's more than just you, like, because a lot of times, it's, you're the creative, you're the CEO, you're the drive and the force, but like learning how to be a good communicator and getting that expectation more than just like telling the story, but like getting that as like, these are our common goals, like, and this is my leadership team that we all work together to make my dream our dream. Like when my dream turned into our dream, that's when it started to be like, okay, I can really like make something special here. When I had like great key, leadership people behind me, like, my chef de cuisine at Callie, it's a guy that like started with me as a dishwasher and now he's a chef de cuisine. Like he was the first guy that came to me when I moved back to San Diego, and he was like, hey, I want to work for you. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to start as a dishwasher. And he was the hardest working guy there. And he's still with me, 6 years later. And he's, he's just chef de cuisine running the restaurant, like,
yeah, it's amazing.
That's a story to be told, like that squid ink pasta that you had when he came there that night. That was his pasta, like, I brought,
good. What's his name again?
His name's Adrian Tarango. Yeah.
Adrian. That was good.
Yeah. Good
I enjoyed that.
And so, like, and he's got a lot to learn still, but he knows that, I think creating an environment of humility and I think that's like something that's really important for me. Yeah. Like having people that like believe in the same things that I believe in. I'm not saying that they have to listen to everything I say and they just shouldn't have an opinion, because the kind of leader that I am, I'm certainly someone that wants to be challenged. Like I'm not necessarily someone that like wants to say that this is how it is and that's it. Like I want someone to say why, even though it's crazy as a leader to say that, but like, I actually enjoy being challenged and like coming up with the ultimate solution based off of like multiple perspectives, rather than just saying like, this is what we're going to do and that's it. Like I'm just not that kind of leader.
Well, you need that as a leader as well. Like especially some of the direct reports, you don't want yes people around you. You need people who are going to challenge certain things. And sometimes when we as leaders are getting off track, they get us back on track and go, isn't this the way we're supposed to be doing this? Or isn't this sort of the culture of what we embody? And it's like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing. We just had a great episode with Curtis Stone, and we talked about, I asked him about like, how do you get people to buy into your vision? And he's like, ultimately, whether you know it or not, you're building a culture within your organization. Your organization can be 5 people or it could be 500 or 5,000, but you ultimately are building a culture, and then people are buying into that culture and say like, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah. They have to believe in it.
Yeah.
Because in the hospitality world, you can say that about any industry, but really even more so in the hospitality world, it's like, I'm going to hire somebody from, let's say off the streets, whatever, but like, we're going to hire somebody from the outside of our culture and bring them in here. And ultimately within 5 days, that person is guest facing, responsible for telling the story, whether that person is, a new employee or not, it doesn't matter to the guests, right?
Yeah.
So like you're hiring these people to tell your story, be guest facing, and pretty quickly they have to, buy into that and understand that like that is the reality of it. Like someone can leave a negative or a positive response that can make or break you as a restaurant, and constantly it's an evolution of like, and that's a big reason why, we have so little turnover at Callie, is like the culture is really strong and everyone believes in it.
Yeah.
But we also have this mentality of like this bottom up mentality. Like everybody that we hire at Callie, either starts as a receiver in the kitchen, or they start as a busser or a polisher or a host at Callie, and they work their way up. A lot of that has to do with just like pretty quickly within 2 weeks, you're going to either buy into the culture or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you buy into the culture, and that's supported by kind of people seeing this like this funnel to the top.
Yeah.
And you're only promoted if you're better than the people that are to the left and right of you.
Yeah.
And they're people that are left and right of you are probably the ones that will tell the managers like, hey, this person's ready to go.
Yeah.
You know, like the trainer that trained you is probably going to say, this guy's ready to go to be a food runner. This girl's ready to go. You know, so like, and that's kind of a really cool thing to kind of create is that culture that you know, Curtis is talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I walked into Callie, immediately you feel, okay, like, because I'm seeing food, drinks being, you know, being delivered, and like you're like, okay, serious food, ingredient driven, like you can feel the deliciousness, but also like people were having fun though.
Yeah,
like your staff was having fun.
Yeah,
you know, and like they were obviously you get into these roles, like you need to be personable.
Yeah.
You need to be a good communicator, but I got a sense that your staff was enjoying themselves as much as we were enjoying ourselves as well, you know, which was cool.
I think the only way you can really create that is if you have these like strong disciplines, you know, in the base of like, because the disciplines kind of mount up to like confidence, right? So like, you know, and the only way you can ultimately feel confident is if you feel like you have, you know, all the information, you know, in you. And so like all the information comes from like, hey, that every server at Callie has been a busser, you know, every server at Callie has been a food runner, you know, and every food runner knows every single ingredient in every single dish. And while we're like very much all about like under promise, over deliver, don't be too flashy, whatever, you know, like if we were to drop that, you know, pumpkin caramelli on the table and you just say to a food runner, like, what's in this dish, that can tell you how we make the pasta, every single ingredient, what farm it comes from. We're not doing that, but if, you know, but that just gives them the confidence of like, I know what's in this cocktail. I know who makes this wine, you know, and that comes from like a lot of creating these disciplines of like, you know, building this structure behind, okay, this is how you graduate. And this is, and a lot of it comes from like, you know, skills that we teach people, and also that giving them all the knowledge that they need to like kind of be successful in that restaurant. And then once you feel confident, you can loosen up and be like, you know,
you can have fun with it.
Right. I mean,
you can have fun with it. Yeah. No, and I got from people, they knew their shit.
Yeah.
But they were having fun with it.
Yeah.
And I'm also not I do ask certain questions because I'm curious.
Yeah.
But I'm also like just there to enjoy the meal as well. 100%. And I could tell they if I went deeper, they'll gladly go deeper, but it wasn't necessary. You know, at every turn. There's an older article. It might have been last year or something like that. Like you described Callie as this rambunctious, like energetic, kind of loud, Mediterranean, sun-driven, and now Fleurette, a little more buttoned up and kind of swanky. I think you said.
Yeah.
What part of Fleurette expresses you that Callie never could?
I think a lot of it is the homage part. You know, I think a lot of it is like, you know, knowing that like my shoulders stand strong and squared because of the, you know, the way that my shoulders were built, you know, and they were built from working with you know,
I can tell
the people. That's my football shoulders. But you know, like I think that, you know, Callie is very expressive of like, you know, this is, you know, my cuisine and not Danielle. And with Fleurette, you know, it's still very much like my interpretation of, you know, French cuisine, but at the end of the day, it's still French, you know, like, and I think that it's important for me to kind of like continuously tell this story of like my background. And although, you know, my background is working for Danielle, who's a Lyonnaise French chef, you know, like, and that style of cuisine, you know, I think that like now I'm creating this time and place again, where it's like, how do I draw this lens and like in San Diego and relate it to France and, you know, their San Diego, which is like the Côte d'Azur and you know, the French Italian Riviera, which, you know, I think is really cool for me to do because my two favorite cuisines in the world are Italian and French. And so like to be able to kind of like put a magnifying glass on like that region and take it to San Diego and see like, look at this cuisine de soleil that we have here in San Diego, you know? And so I think that that's kind of really the starting point for Fleurette is like, okay, part of it is the homage factor of like, oh, clearly I'm a proud Boludian, you know, as we call ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's also, you know, telling my own story, you know, and in a way that like, you know, I think that in San Diego in general, and a lot of places, like so many people take French cuisine and they put it into this box of like what America is comfortable with French food, steak frites, escargot, and they just put all this cuisine together. And it's like, I mean, maybe you're going to find that if you go to a restaurant in Paris or a classic bistro, but like, you know, generally France is like Italy where, you know, you're
not taking into account regionality.
Right, regionality,
like
right.
That.
So like, I think telling the story through the general lens of like cuisine de soleil and saying light, bright, and clean, drawing it back to what I was saying earlier, you know, that style of food, you know, like Fleurette's not the restaurant you're going to come to and eat steak frites and escargot. It's not like, and although people feel comfortable with those things and they call that French cuisine, people are like, oh, you're going to open a French bistro, so you're going to have these, you know, cream laden, butter laden kind of sauces. It's like, no, actually, you're right about sauces. like the foundation of French cuisine is like sauce work, and something I'm crazy about is, and I think that like certainly while we do showcase some of that at Callie, you know, what I'm most excited about sharing is that like that foundation, that technique side of cuisine that, you know, Callie's a more simple style of cuisine. This shows a lot more.
You get to flex a little more. You and the team, you and the team get to flex.
I mean,
a little
it's not.
more.
It's just. It's always in the perspective of like flavor. Like I'm always looking to like build these and create these experiences for, especially in San Diego. Like I never look at like I want to create something that's gonna look good on like Bon Appetit magazine. Like I'm creating something that like I know what is being explored in my region, in my market, and I think I have a generally good idea of like what the palette is in our market. And I think that I think that we could like create something really special that ties people to San Diego, to make people feel proud to say like, this is a San Diego restaurant. Yeah. Like, oh, could we open this in LA? We could, but like, no, this is a San Diego restaurant. And like, this is why.
And that goes to kind of like my next question or point is like, how do you create and celebrate French elegance without losing San Diego soul?
I think because it's coming from me, like I always stay really true to myself. Like even when I was in New York, I brought my skateboard around like everywhere. Like I still have a skateboard in the back of my truck right now. Like, you know, and I skated to work every day. Not just the skater mentality, but just like I'm a San Diego kid through and through. So like, you know, I don't ask myself like what would Danielle do in this situation. I say be true to yourself. Like, you know, like we have some of the most wealthiest populations in the entire world, like living like, you know, within 5 miles of Fleurette, you know, and those people travel over the world, and there's one population. But at the end of the day, like what is special about this? What makes this special to San Diego? And it's like obviously the ingredients are really important, and also telling the story through the food. You know, like I think that that's a really important side of it, and making it feel pretty approachable. I always say that like the approachability, a lot of it is like kind of under promise, over deliver. Like don't use a bunch of French words and people that don't understand. And oftentimes I'll ask my wife, like, do you know what this means? You know, like if you don't know what it means and you're the wife of a chef, like probably most people don't know what this means. So like, let's just not pretend like it's an approachable word and just say, find a different way to talk about it, you know, like, because, and at the table, someone could say, oh, this is inspired by coq au vin, but like, you know, people don't know what sauce mirette is, you know, like, so I think that is, you know, a lot of kind of my perspective is based off of like, okay, what do my diners want? You know, like what are the people that are coming to Callie, what are they looking for? And I think when we opened Callie, I had one perspective, because the only perspective I had was like what everyone told me. And so we
Well,
opened.
you didn't have guests yet.
Right.
You did. I mean, you didn't have a dialogue with them or feedback or anything, you know, but now you have 4 years of really developing a relationship with them.
That's what gives me the confidence to say like, okay, you know, like this is our 5th year of Callie. We're, you know, it's our best year yet.
Yeah.
Like people are still like coming to me and saying that they can't get a reservation. And I think a lot of that comes from one, the cores of, you know, ambiance, hospitality, and great food. But that's the same thing, you know, the cores that we're building at Fleurette. But then on top of it is like, you know, for me being able to, you know, continuously fall in love with the process, I want to continuously challenge myself. And also, you know, I think that like I talk about like foundation earlier, like I feel like Callie is the foundation that we've built. And like I think that this is like the first brick that like sits on top of the foundation. And I couldn't have come from New York and opened Fleurette. Like I had to do Callie, and I got like a lot of my employees that came from Callie and working at Fleurette. It's an opportunity for them to kind of learn another level, you know, like. And at the end of the day, it's not meant to be, like I say swanky because it sounds fun. Like it sounds a little bit flirtatious. It sounds like, you know, so it's not like, in no way, shape, or form is it meant to feel like a restaurant that you need to go to and wear a jacket, you know, like the San Diego side of me.
You can if you want.
You can if you want to, but like the San Diego side of me that like went to Le Bernardin for the first time, like I had to wear a jacket. I hated it. You know, like when I, you know, like working at Danielle and like all the guests had to wear jackets. It's just like so not me. So I was like,
that's where the San Diego soul comes in. I mean, that's where the San Diego.
Well, it's like, you know, people in San Diego, you live in San Diego for a reason, you know, like you don't live in San Diego. So you know, like you live in New York to wear a suit, you know, like in San Diego.
But some people also might see it as an opportunity to get dressed up, though.
Oh yeah,
you know,
sure.
You know, like at night, because there is something. Again, I was there as it's still coming together in the paint, in the paint's drying, but like it's kind of sexy.
Yeah,
like you know, and so you know, a husband and wife might go, we can go in my shirt, but I kind of want to get dressed up.
10,000%. I think that like I talk about opportunity in San Diego is like how many places are there that, you know, are like that. Now, can you come in flip flops? Sure. You know, like that's San Diego.
Yeah.
Like we have people that come, you know, to you know, Callie in flip flops and order coastery. You know, like I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. Like I want to be you one day.
Live your life.
Yeah, I want to be you one day. But,
yeah, exactly.
But you know, like I think that there's you know, certainly place in the market to create, you know, a place that can be busy, you know, every night of the week at that level. You know, and I think that you know, it's been, you know, my friends up there in Carlsbad are doing a great job of like, you know, up at June Jolie, you know, like where they created something where, you know, they're busy, you know, every night of the week, you know, cooking at a high level and a prefix level, which I'm like crazy proud of. I'm like, man, this is like, you know, in San Diego to see that,
awesome.
That graduation, you know, like that's a huge thing for San Diego. And, you know, I think to even give, you know, for San Diego to be like, have someone like you come down to San Diego and eat at Callie, you know, it means something. It means that like, you know, we're creating, there's like, it's not the end of the road, but certainly like we're on the right path, you know, we're going to the right place, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if you checked out the Tara Monsad episode, but she was funny because and I brought it up in the conversation, but she's like, we're like the middle ground. We're the middle child. Yeah. You know, people don't pay attention to us as much, and they should. Yeah. And they need to.
Yeah. I was listening to that and definitely agreeing with her when what she was saying. You know, I mean, she's talking about between Mexico and LA, but you know, but I'm also kind of like, I am the middle child. Like I'm, you know, and
you wear that badge proudly.
Yeah. And you know, as part of what keeps me humble is like, and continuously like striving, like you can easily be, you know, the people that are getting noticed all the time and chill a little bit. You know, for me, it's like, it's kind of the right place for me to be because I with my mentality, I always want to keep driving, getting better. And so like, you know, when you're in that position, you know, this is me turning a negative into a positive again, but you know, I'm looking at it like, okay, well, you know, there's never been a James Beard chef in San Diego. There's never been, you know, this, you know, there's a lot of like, again, I just look at it as opportunity. Like if there's opportunity out there, then it's something for me to keep running for, like
Absolutely.
So I think that's kind of what's special about San Diego too,
Yeah.
Like,
But I think and you were even telling me earlier before we were recording, going through the James Beard process and things like that. But the reason you want to James Beard is to have a full house, is more visibility, is to still do all the things that you and your team are doing.
Yeah.
Because you have to.
Yeah.
Still offer an incredible experience, provide great food.
And honestly, it wouldn't change a thing for us outside of like widening the lens, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that like just getting more eyes on what we're doing, you know, like what's as much as like it's not an ego thing for me, but like giving your staff that recognition of like you're doing something special, like all that extra work, all that buy-in, all that. It's like, and for me as a business owner, I look at like my restaurant's full every single night. People are there to have a good time. Everyone's smiling, everyone's spending money and really happy to be there and like happy to share that experience with me over and over again. Like that's fuel for my fire. Like, but for my team, I think in a larger scale, for San Diego, those kind of things are what kind of gives you that recognition of like,
for sure,
hey, we're proud of this, like not just me, like we're proud of this, like, and I think that's more important for me than anything is like why we're, going through this process for the first time this year is like, just kind of like, okay, well, it would be cool to be recognized at that level, for our team, like I think that's, and I have my director of operations and Sim, she worked with me as a hostess at Blue Suit. She worked her way up, worked at EMP for a long time, and we've been friends for a long time. So she's like my sister. She's the one that, she's been with me since day one at Callie and really helped me like create this, and, so, and she's just like me. She's like, she still has the New York side to her. So she's like, she's like, that's not why we do this, blah, blah, blah. But like at the end of the day, we're both very much know that like it would be great for our team to be recognized.
No, you want it. It's not saying there's nothing wrong with like wanting these things. I think it's important. And I think there's nothing wrong with also personally having a want for it. But you're not, and you already aren't, but you're not in the business to just get awards. I mean, we had Aisha, we did a series with San Pellegrino, a new course, which is on YouTube. It's great. People should definitely check it out. But Aisha Ibrahim is like, if you're in the business of like just doing it for the awards, you're in the wrong, you're in the wrong space, But I think also Charlie Mitchell said something in that series. He's like, hungry chefs want to work for hungry cooks.
Yeah.
And so pushing the envelope, continuing to want to be better, continuing to want to elevate and go for some of these awards, it helps the team.
Helps
like,
the team.
Like you said.
The exposure, like, gives you the opportunity to work with even better people that kind of can align with your kind of vision of like trying to push for something more, it just kind of gives you a lot of opportunity. Again, kind of opens the door to more opportunity. And Gavin always says, like, these kind of awards, like it's a shelf that you put on, it's as a trophy you put on your shelf that celebrates what you did yesterday, but doesn't change what's happening tonight. And so
true.
Moving forward is like, yes, like we should all be proud of this, and maybe this is something that we can stand on, but it's certainly not foundation, and it's certainly not something that we can rely on that for the guests that's coming in tonight, or the guests that we want to get next week. We still got to be on our game and being better than we were yesterday. And so, but I think, exposure wise, getting great staff to come in and buy into what you're doing, 100%. The buy-in, obviously back to the buy-in.
Yeah. It's so true. So much of what we're talking about of like what makes your restaurant of a time, of a place, even like Dave was saying, is ingredients. And when you and I were having breakfast one day, you were talking about the 4-acre farm that you're bringing seeds from Europe. You talk about food not just as flavor, but as responsibility. What do you feel is your deeper role in sort of the ecosystem So not just as a restaurateur, but also to the environment, to this farm, to other farms.
There's multiple different factors. Like part of it is the education side of it. Like me being that Curious George person that I am doesn't mean anything unless I'm passing that information on, kind of really creating a legacy behind like, this is the why, you know, like telling the story of the why, like why are we doing this? Why, you know, why are we using this ingredient? You know, why are we working with this person? So that a lot of that comes from like being curious and studying. Like every farmer I work with, the first thing I ask them is like, what's in your soil? What are we doing to regenerate the soil? What are we doing to be stewards of the soil and understand that like our responsibility is to leave it better than we found it? Like if you're just producing like something beautiful for me, but your answer is not like in line with that belief, then I don't care about what you're producing. Like, and so having that core responsibility as a person, like understanding that what I buy has influence on not just our economy, but the future of this planet. I think that, you know, might sound gimmicky, but that is the true reality of like something that I can say, I'm proud to serve this, you know, like not just because it's coming from a local farm or that I had something to do with planting the seed. It's more like theoretically like planting the seed, you know, like for the next generation of like, okay, like we can get better, you know, like we can get to a better place, you know. I think what was like throughout my career, I've had these opportunities of working on the farm in Vermont to working in the countryside of London, where everything was just like so, all the produce was so beautiful and pristine, and everything was local, but there was no such thing as organic. There's no such thing. So it was like, you know, getting away from like the commercialism of like of all of that and saying like, what makes it good, what makes it delicious, and then oftentimes it's the people that care about the ingredient, that, you know, and everything that went into it, you know, and how, you know, buying our whole fish from you know Sai Fukushima and taking the guts and saving them for our farmer that blends it up and makes a soup and puts it in his soil, and it's like nature's nitrogen. Understanding that, you know, like by working on farms and understanding that like, hey, I don't need to throw that away. I can take that and give it to this person, and this person turns it into something great. And when I get my watermelon in the summertime, it's like, well, these tomatoes are like, and that's why, because of that nitrogen that's in the soil from those fish guts, you know, like, so I think a lot of it has to do with education, right? So like,
so much, yeah.
Educating myself about, not based on politics, based on like the reality of like what's in the soil. I'm no biologist, but I think that like through that experience, I have, you know, I'm able to kind of like draw these conclusions of like what I feel is important. And ultimately what's important is, you know, leaving it better than we found it and following the path of flavor, you know, understanding that like when you can align those two sides, you have the ultimate, you know, the ultimate story that you can tell. More than a story, you have delicious food and you feel good about what you're doing. Like there's no better thing to,
yeah.
Like
it's magic,
and you're more than a restaurant. You're more than a chef.
Of course.
I think that's the story that I always want to tell, is like being more than a chef. You know, going back to what I talked about Danielle earlier, is like, how can I have more of an impact than just being someone that's a good cook?
Yeah.
You know, like I pride myself on being a good cook, and that's a toolbox that I filled up a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like now, okay, what's left? Like it's more than a chef.
How do you build upon that foundation? You know, that's what you're doing.
Exactly. Like,
yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with, you know, it's just staying humble, staying hungry, you know, like, that's what, and understanding that I have a crazy opportunity to have an influence. And this is only probably like 10 or 15%
opportunity, but responsibility as well, because there's a big responsibility with that. You know?
So much responsibility, and maybe there's just 10% of people, that's probably high, that will actually like hold on to that and create, but that 10% can kind of be, you know, can continuously be spread, you know, like, and I think
can permeate, you know, different communities and culture. And
if I can do that in my hometown, in my home community, like that's really like something that I can be really proud of.
Yeah. I've heard you say nobody is happier than the people of San Diego.
Dude, no, fucking not happy, stoked. Like,
sorry, I need to use the right word. I need to use the right word. But, you know, after cooking around the world.
Yeah.
You know, you're in kitchens with global reputations. What does joy mean to you now?
There's multiple things, you know, as a chef, you know, joy, there's nothing more joyful for me than playing catch with my kids in the backyard, you know, like, and giving my kids an opportunity to kind of be proud of like who their dad is, you know, like, you know, not just the chef or the restaurant owner, but like their dad, you know, like, I think that's like the most joyful thing for me as a person. You know, I think joy and pride are two things that kind of go in line with me, and that a lot of that has to do with the mentorship side of things, like seeing other people succeed around me, you know, like whether it's someone that like I mentored, or seeing someone like Tara getting like some love and joy, like and pride in San Diego, like, you know, that really like truly brings me joy, you know, like I think that I feel like that is, and maybe that's the selfless side of me a little bit, but it's also, you know, I think that that's something special, you know, like, and I love seeing people feeling inspired or feeling like they're doing something special, and like having pride in that. Like, you know, you're more than just, you know, there's a lot of this industry, there's 10 or 15% that are actually like doing something really special, you know, and I think that like when I see other people, you know, have that in their lives, that brings me joy.
Yeah.
That's like the selfless side of me, I think. But, yeah. And, you know, I think what I'm most proud of is just creating this culture at Callie. What I can really say that brings me joy is like, you know, having people that really believe in what we're doing, you know, like there's nothing that I'm more proud of, is that I can say like, we hire good people, and we help build them into great professionals. You know, like that really makes me, when people come to my restaurant and they say like, you know, the cuisine was great, but like your people are like what makes this place special. I'm like, man, that's like, nothing makes me feel better than that. You know?
Yeah, and now you get to build upon that culture with Fleurette as well, which is super cool. Because you know, it's a different concept, it's a different offering, but still there's a through line between the culture that you've already established. Like 100%. You said, that foundation.
100%. And you know, with Ann and I both coming from New York, and like her coming from, you know, working with Danielle Hume and that style of hospitality, and, you know, she worked with Danielle for a long time too. You know, both of us understand that level of, you know, what it takes. And like, I think that we really, you know, want to build that in San Diego, you know, like not necessarily that like 3 Michelin star style restaurant, like that's, but like everything that we do is still built on that same foundation of that 3 Michelin star restaurant, you know, like all the million details that make up the 3 Michelin star restaurant is the same details that Callie's built on, you know, it's just, you know, deciding with this is at that point, like, what is the factor that we really want to?
Yeah.
What does San Diego really
it's
want?
delivered just slightly, you know, it's delivered differently, but the intention is still there.
Yeah, and I think that coming back to San Diego, seeing, you know, that potential there, and understanding that like, okay, this is what it's going to take to do that, and being fully invested in it. I'm like, okay, you know, and believe me, there's been a lot of ups and downs along the way where you know, but I think that, you know,
and there'll be more.
Yeah. That's the thing. Is like,
more.
If you go into anything with the idea that like, that everything's going to be perfect, like you have to have realistic expectations. Like, what's something that I pride myself on is like, when I look at like, I want to go from point A to point B, I'm not looking at a straight line. Like, I know that there's going to be like, there's a crevice, there's a peak, you know, there's a bottom of a mountain too, you know? So like, I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to hit that, but like, I'm preparing for that. I'm not preparing for point B. I know that there's all this in between. And when I get to point B, there's probably a big drop after that. So like, you know, that's what I'm preparing for with my real, you know, if it doesn't happen, people are always like, how do you stay so humble? I'm like, you never know what's going to happen. Anything can change tomorrow. Like, you know,
and you've experienced it not just as a business person, but in life.
Yeah. 100%
as well.
Yeah.
So, and that's the truth of life. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's why I stay very humble about everything, because I've been beat up a lot.
Middle child again. I took hits from both sides. Yeah.
Travis, what's a life lesson you can leave us with?
We just talked about humility, but I think that like what I talked about earlier is, staying focused on always be true to yourself, and find ways to define yourself that will kind of live on in the next generation, and that ultimately goes back to like leave it better than you found it. I think that's a lesson that my parents always told me, like whether it's like going to my friends, my grandma's house to go play Legos on the floor, and leaving better than we found it, or ultimately, in this world of, ingredients that we talked about, just like what is that defines you there, and then, finding ways to do it, follow through.
We're proud to have you as a part of our community. We also love San Diego here at On the Pass.
I love hearing you say that. I love hearing you say that.
And we're going to encourage more people to, to get down there and experience not only what you're doing, but what some of your contemporaries, are doing for the whole community. And excited for Fleurette to open and get down there. And I'm going to dress up.
Yeah, you better.
I'm gonna dress up.
Yeah, I don't know about tuxedo, but
no. I'm not. We're not gonna go that far. You're not gonna go that far. But no, man.
I'll make a reason for you to come down in tuxedo one day.
Yeah. No, I mean, let's do it. Yeah. Let's do it. I haven't worn it in probably a couple years, but you could dust it off.
Tuxedo in San Diego. It's gotta be worn with flip flops.
With flip flops. Yeah.